Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am really excited to talk about this one today. As you might have read from the title, we are talking about POC, Princesses of Color. Now, if you've been paying attention to Twitter, you'll know the whole thing with the new Ariel, who is a black woman, and not Halle Berry, Halle Bailey. Got caught by that one. But anyway, people were having a little bit of a tizzy about it. There were some racists being like, we don't want the Little Mermaid to be black. And in the midst of this, one person's brilliant rebuttal was, well, what if Cinderella was Indian? And all of the replies to that comment were basically, Bollywood Cinderella would be dope, A, and B, Cinderella's already an international story. It's been done in every country, and so that made me think, I have a couple of Cinderella stories that I know about and love, including one that's far back from my childhood that I still adore to this day. Let's talk about them. So here we are. We're going to talk about 3 different international Cinderella stories, all from different countries that are non-Western because, well, I'm just tired of the Western one. So first up is Ye Xin. As you can see, even here it says A Cinderella Story from China. Now, I first learned about this book with the 4th grade class that I work with. The teacher was reading them different Cinderella stories to compare and contrast between them. And so I didn't know too much about this one. And then when I was reading the little synopsis here, it says that the first rendition of this tale was found centuries before any European version was put to paper. So this might be the actual oldest Cinderella tale. And this revolves around a young woman named Ye Shen, and the setup is pretty familiar. She was born to one of the wives of a chieftain. Both the chieftain and her mother died. The chieftain's other wife and her daughter became very jealous of her and tried to keep her away. In this one, it's not a fairy godmother, though. It's a magical fish. Because in Chinese stories, a lot of the time it is a magical fish, but it definitely adds something different than anything else you've ever seen in a Cinderella story. Ye Shen feeds this fish every day, and her stepmother, who wants to rob her of every little joy, kills the fish. Ye Shen then takes the bones, and they're basically magic, giving her little bits of food and things that her stepmother won't allow her to have. And it's the bones of this fish that transform her into what you see on the cover here. All of the art in all of these is really stylistic too. It's fantastic. I gotta love picture books. But she goes to the festival, and the king actually never sees her at the festival, but everyone agrees she's beautiful. However, she fears that her stepmother will recognize her and runs away, leaving behind one beautiful gold slipper that seems to be lighter than it should be if it was made of solid gold. The slipper is brought to the king, who then searches for the foot that it belongs to. It's your Cinderella story. And Ye Shen sneaks out to grab it because in leaving behind one of the shoe, the bones of her fish no longer work for her, and so the little bit of happiness she had is lost, and she has to go find it. The king finds her. They live happily ever after. It's a Cinderella story. And in this one, the stepmother and stepsister die in a rock slide at the very end. So one of the darker ones. I'm always interested to see what happens to the evil stepmother and stepsisters at the end. It's usually pretty interesting. This one, admittedly, probably not my least favorite of the 3, only because it literally is purely her beauty that wins over the king. And I like the more multifaceted Cinderella stories where it's something other than just her natural beauty that wins him over at first sight, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of the German version, aka the Disney version, because her beauty is supposed to play so much a big part in why he falls in love with her. But that is our first one from China. Next up, coming a little bit closer to the US, but not the US, we have Adelita, a Mexican Cinderella story, and as you can see, very, very stylized. This one is very similar to the tale as we know it. The young woman is born to a loving man and wife. The wife dies and the man remarries, and the mother and her 2 girls, or whatever, but they keep to themselves until Adelita's father dies. This one I like because there is a servant character, kind of like a mothery nanny type character named Esperanza, who in this instance works as the fairy godmother, essentially. There is a fiesta happening in a nearby ranch for a very, very wealthy man and his son, and it's very well known that the son is looking for a wife. And so, of course, the stepmother and the stepsisters go off and leave Adelita at home, and it's Esperanza that comes and helps Adelita get ready and shows her her mother's old dress and I forget the word for it. It says shawl, but I cannot. This book is actually really cool in that it has a lot of Spanish in it. Like, for example, if I can find one that is simple. If you can see here, you can see bits of, like, Spanish and things. Am I doing this right? Yeah. It'll start with Spanish and it'll say it again in English so you can learn it. So she finds it's the shawl instead of the shoe, and she goes to the party, and she meets Javier. In this instance, she actually was childhood friends, I believe, with Javier, and so he doesn't actually recognize her at the party. She has to bring it up later, but sure. So she runs home, and in this instance, when the young man comes looking for his Cinderella, and in this case, they do reference Cinderella exactly. He stops outside the house because he notices that Adelita has hung the shawl outside the window to signal that she is there. So I like that part, how she puts forward the steps to be like, hey, I'm right here. Take me out of here. She has a little bit more agency than a lot of Cinderella stories. So I really was a big fan of that. In this one, it was actually quite strange because when Javier comes to ask for her hand, she says, well, you have to ask my stepmother for permission first. And I can't tell if that was her being gracious or her being petty because, like, the stepmother's not going to say no and, like, ruin her reputation. So, like, I can't decide. But either way, I love it. This was, again, one of the other ones that the 4th grade class was reading to do some compare and contrast between. However, it was adorable. It was nice being able to read these through for myself because I can only catch snippets between, when I was actually working with kids in school. So I liked this one a lot as well. But the third one, this one is a facet of my childhood. It is my ultimate favorite. And when I mentioned to my mom that I was going to be doing this video, she's like, you're including it, right? I was like, yeah, duh, I'm including it. And that is Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters by John Steptoe. This was the first book in my life that took place in a non-Western setting that I can remember reading. Like, my mom was usually pretty good about providing a lot of books when we were really little. But this was the first one where it was like, these people look nothing like me, and it stuck with me, and I love this book. I mean, just look at the art. Look at that. It's really unfortunate, too. I was doing a little bit of research. John Steptoe passed away not very long after this was published. I think this was published in, like, 1987, and he passed away in, like, 1989 or something like that. So it was really sad, but I just love the art. Anyway, you might want to know what this one is about. This one is a little bit different than most Cinderella stories. It has the same premise of this king is looking for a wife, and so he sends out word to all of the maidens that they must come. And so the man Mufaro and his 2 beautiful daughters, and let me double check that I can do this one justice. Nyasha and Manyara. I feel like I'm saying that Manyara with a Hispanic type flair, but I'm going for it. One daughter, Nyasha, is kind and understanding and compassionate and generous, and Manyara is cold and cruel and thinks very highly of herself. Only Mufaro doesn't really know that. In his mind, both of his daughters are perfectly beautiful, wonderful. So he can't choose between them to send one of them to go to see the king. So he says, we will both go. And we'll all go. And he will pick among you, for I cannot pick. And Manyara decides, screw this, and sneaks away in the middle of the night to make her way there. And she comes across various people, a young boy looking for food, a young man looking for help, and basically brushes off all of them. Did I say young man? I meant old man. basically brushes off everyone looking for help and says, I am going to be your queen. How dare you ask me for such things? Nyasha, on the other hand, doesn't actually want to go. She loves her father. She loves her home. There's this little snake that she tends to in the garden, and I'm going to forget his name as well. Nayoka. So Nayoka is this little snake that she sings to all the time, and she doesn't want to leave him and her father, and she loves it, but she is a good daughter, and she will go. She comes across all of the same people that Manyara comes across, but reacts in a very different way. She offers the boy food, she offers her shawl, she offers her help, and she is kind. And when she gets there, her sister runs out of the palace screaming, do not go in there, there is a monster with, I think it's 10 heads, all each a snake, and do not go in. But when our Cinderella goes in, our Nyasha, she sees only Nayoka sitting on the throne, and suddenly Nayoka transforms into a very handsome king, and he explains that he's been there every step of the way. He has been the young boy that she gave food to, he has been the old woman that she helped, he has been her Nayoka all this time, and that's part of the reason why this one is my favorite of the three. One of my favorite is he loved her for her kindness and her compassion and her endurance in what was a very difficult time with her sister. He knew her character and loved her for that, which is why this is hands down my favorite Cinderella telling. I also love this book. This is just so pretty. Like, I just love this one so much, and I'm so happy that this was such a big part of my childhood. Like, it was great. But in general, I just thought this would be a fun video to do because princesses should come in all shapes and colors, and we should celebrate what different characters can bring to the table of any race or ethnicity or culture or what have you. And each of these books brings something a little bit special, a little bit extra that the other versions don't have. And so they are all needed because they all fill a gap. And I love our new Little Mermaid. I honestly wasn't interested at all in the movie because Little Mermaid is like one of my least favorite movies. You were a magical being. You became a human to fawn over a dude whose name you didn't even know. What? But anyway, are you excited for the new Little Mermaid? Are you interested in any more international Cinderella stories? There are a couple other ones that I could do if I wanted to do a sequel to this one. My mother was really annoyed that I wasn't doing the Native American one that she loved. So I might do this again, another one, because this is just so much fun. So anyways, like, comment, subscribe, all of that if you liked it. And other than that, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.